Well, hey there. I think we're live, Ross.
Hey, Rebecca.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I am doing terrific, minus, just a couple of little technical glitches here this morning, but nothing new, right?
Right.
Yeah, it is what we deal with, and as we were just chatting about offline, we've all kind of migrated from one platform to the next. It
Right,
was
right.
Google Hangouts, and then we made our way over to Blab, and now I think we're all figuring out where we're going to end back up. But today, this is our second or third time, I can't remember off the top of my head, that we are not only on Hangouts, but we're also live streaming over to our Facebook page.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, so you gotta love technology and the way it just continues to evolve at a lightning pace, don't you?
Right, right. So I
Yeah.
think it's great. I mean, you're using the opportunity really to find a way to reach a bigger audience by going to Facebook Live from Google Hangouts.
Yeah, well, and for us, we talk so much about go where your audience is, and we
Mhm.
have almost 400,000 fans over there on Facebook. So, yeah, it's definitely the place to be for us and so many others, of course. But we are huge fans of Hangouts. We use Slack as a communication tool at Post Planner, and it integrates directly into Slack, and so we spend a lot of time on Hangouts.
That's
Um,
great.
but yeah, it's the power of two pretty substantial tools.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for being here. Ross, let me just share a little bit about you. I know we've been connected for a long time on social media, but I think this might be maybe our first time just getting face to face, or at least it's been a while if we did,
Right, right.
previously. Um, and I guess we did, gosh, but it was, maybe what, a year ago?
It was a
2 years?
while ago. It was, I think,
Yeah,
around when I first started my show on
that's right.
the other network,
That other place,
that
that's
other channel.
see, I've already put it out of my head.
Right, right.
Yeah, it's already gone. But yes, I know you are like the live streaming king. You are all over the place with events and just keeping yourself incredibly busy. And I'm excited that we get to tap into you today and talk about what is definitely a hot topic, employee advocacy on social media, and how companies can really leverage their teams, their employees to spread the word around their brand. So let's talk a little bit about you. Your expertise lies at the crossroads where HR and social media meet, which I think is fascinating. We can
Right.
definitely talk about that. You also have a media background, which I know we both have that in common. And so you approach HR as the company's internal marketing arm promoting the employer brand, which is why I'm excited to really discuss all that you've worked on in the past, that you continue to work on within your business, and how you're helping companies really harness that power
Right.
within their own business.
Great, great. I'm looking forward to it. It's an exciting topic too, and I don't look at it like, okay, now I'm taking off the social media or live streaming hat and putting on the HR hat. This is all business is all integrating all these different tools, and of course, business is all about people, and so when you're taking advantage of really what is the most important asset in a knowledge economy, which is your employee workforce. You couldn't find a better mix than social media with HR.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it's interesting. You have such a vast or extensive background that it feels very natural for it all to intersect at that
Right, right.
crossroads for you and pull it all together. And with such, like I said, it's definitely a hot topic, and it's a topic that I think so many are still really wrestling with
Right.
how to truly leverage all that you've been working on for so many years. And I just wanted to touch on you. We talked about live streaming. So you are the co-founder of HRavantgarde.com, and then the
Yes.
host of Livestream Stars. Tell us a little bit about both of those.
Okay, so HR Avant-Garde is an HR organization. We look at kind of moving the needle forward on the profession, and it's actually very related to this topic because one of our major ideas is that HR should be moving towards becoming internal marketing and sort of separating itself from its administrative past and from what can be outsourced. And so HR becomes your guardian of the culture. It becomes the department that markets to your employees, like marketing uh, is trying to reach your customers on the outside. And so the more you can align those two elements, the stronger both your company culture will be and will be the way that your employees deliver your product or service, sales, marketing, all that stuff on the external side. And we've seen that having strong culture and having happy employees is not something that you do because it's a good, fun, touchy-feely HR initiative, but because it has a direct line of sight to improving the bottom line, increasing shareholder value, and the major business metrics that you would use to look at how your company is performing. Livestream Stars, Livestream Universe is my live streaming hobby or good times. So I'm hosting a show, a weekly show, Monday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, in which I interview people who are doing good things on live streaming and get into kind of how they got into live streaming and how they use it either personally or professionally. And then I do a bunch of other shows as well on a monthly basis around different topics, news, sports, advice, things like that. So that's just kind of, it's a passion, but it's something also that I'm going to be able to integrate into my work over time as well as more companies become interested in live streaming.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I would imagine people will be beating down your door just based off of what we're seeing so far in the race to own that live streaming market, and it's been fascinating just to watch how it's all transpired. I would imagine you have a lot of thoughts around that and how companies should be using live streaming to better connect with their customers, to really leverage their employees within that employee advocacy.
And I think the more that Facebook continues to really ramp up Facebook Live and go all in on video as they want to really dominate the video world and become not only a competitor to YouTube, but maybe eventually become the place you go for video, and that much of their content will be video, and that's all part of their goal to keep you on the platform and make the platform almost synonymous with the internet, right?
Yeah.
And so since most brands already have a brand page and they're already producing content for Facebook, the integration of Facebook Live with their company Facebook page is a great opportunity to add another layer of content that they can promote to their customers, and even a way to get employees involved in sharing that content. And it could be live, it could be produced video, it could be capturing a moment with a cell phone behind the scenes, but definitely Facebook's looking for shows, they're looking for all different types of content, and right now you really get a lot for your investment in video, because Facebook, while it's basically pay to play with most of what you put on a business or brand page, video is going to get much more attention, because right now they want to encourage you to make this your video platform. So that's an advantage that live video has, is that your reach is beyond what it is for posting content or written content, photos, links, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity is really endless at this point. As you said, they're looking for content. It's, you look at YouTube as kind of the old guy on the block when it
Right,
comes
right.
into video and live streaming. They've been doing it forever, and yet obviously they're feeling a big push to stay in the game with their announcement yesterday that they're now
Right.
putting it really in the palm of your hand. So it's definitely going to be a competition between the two, I think, in how people are using those and how brands decide to integrate them.
And they're definitely, I think, YouTube with this app that they came out with. Yeah, small business owners who have a budget, don't have, for video, don't maybe have consultants or people inside who can do video. And the idea is really to walk you through how to put together a little video showcasing your business and your products and telling people who you are. And the idea is that anybody should be able to learn how to do it pretty quickly and have something presentable. So, the tools are becoming more and more democratized for broadcasting, and it does give small businesses an opportunity to play on the same field that big businesses do, by at least being in the game, right? By being able to produce video, by being able to promote themselves and market themselves through video. And that's kind of exciting, right? Because it really...
Super exciting.
It really, since we see e-commerce and people selling goods and services all over the world, now they're also able to introduce themselves through video much more easily than ever before.
Yeah, I love that, really evening out that playing field and allowing businesses that they just don't have the budget to get into video. You even see it with Adobe, getting into the video game, with Adobe Spark.
Right. I love Adobe Spark, by the way.
I do too. I love it. And you look at how easy it is with tools like that to now put together a high quality video, and you don't have to have a whole lot of skills to do that, and you also don't have to have really a budget at all to do that.
I should add with that, upload it directly to Facebook. You're not going to get that benefit if you put it on YouTube and then link to YouTube, link to the YouTube video. Facebook wants the video to be native to Facebook. So whatever you produce and can upload directly to Facebook or do directly on Facebook Live, that's where you're going to see your bump in terms of your reach.
That's a great point, and I think goes back to for any business, any brand of any size, you have to consider the platform that you're on and the content that you're creating specifically for that platform, so that you are getting the maximum exposure, you're getting out there in front of your audience. And it definitely goes back to a hot topic internally for us, which is organic reach. And how do you continue to get in front of an audience that might not have seen your content recently? And I think video is the way to do it.
That's one great way, and employee advocacy is another great way, because unless you're a company of one or two people, your reach for your employees is going to be well beyond your reach for your Facebook page. I mean, even a very popular Facebook page with a lot of followers, if you have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 employees, their reach is probably going to be 10 times what the reach of your Facebook page is if they share your content as well. Plus, there's the trust level that individuals have that brands often don't have. Some brands do, but for the most part, if I don't know about a company, I'm going to be much more open to following an individual and connecting with an individual than I am with a brand. So that there's so much power that the individual employee has in sharing that content. Plus, there's also the close connections that person's sharing it to. So, for instance, if you share something from your company to your friends and family, think about that. That's a recommendation from somebody that's very close to them, right? That content. So it's not only the reach, but it's the trust and the depth of the connection from which that content is coming from, or that it could be an offer, it could be an event, whatever it is that you're putting out there. I think it's very powerful when it comes from a person versus a logo.
I couldn't agree more. And, from that trust perspective, there's no quicker way to be able to tap into that trust that your employees have already been building out across all of their social channels for so many years.
Right.
And I think there's a couple of issues that you run up against when you talk about this, and there's two different sides. There's the company side, but how do I control the conversation that's going on? And then there's the employee side saying, well, wait a second, do I have to give up my social channels to my employer? And all of a sudden, am I just becoming a broadcast channel for them? So could you speak to both sides of that and those concerns?
I don't think these programs work when you force employees, right? And I think you have to give up some control. I mean, again, it all starts with the culture of the organization. The more you can foster an open culture, a culture of communication, a culture where employees are recognized and valued, and while we all rather it be the weekend, still enjoy going to work and enjoy being a part of a team and believe in what the company's about beyond the product and the service. And if they're proud to be a part of that company, if they're proud to wear the logo, so to speak, on their shirt and so forth, then sharing that company's message, sharing their products and services, sharing news about that company will be an extension of themselves. It'll be something that they feel will add to their own brand and their own sense of that they're a part of something bigger than themselves, right? A colleague of mine always uses the example that three people are asked what they're doing, and one person says, I'm making bricks, and the second person says, I'm building a wall, and the third person says, I'm building a cathedral. So the person who's building the cathedral understands really what it's all about, right? Where they fit into the larger picture of what the company's trying to accomplish, and they really see the significance of their task, no matter how small it may be in relation to the entire project, right? And so when people feel that connection, they're proud to share what they're doing. The guy who's building a cathedral is proud to tell his friends and family that he's building a cathedral. The guy who's reduced his job to, well, I'm making a brick, not so much. So that's where the idea that I talked about in the beginning about HR changing the mindset to being more about internal marketing is everybody, all employees should know where they fit in, what the culture is about, and what the objectives are that they're trying to achieve, and what it really is that they're making or selling, or what service they're delivering, right? Because they're not just making a brick, they're building a cathedral that people are going to be a part of. So the more that is a message internally, the easier it is for employees to share that externally. But again, not every employee will want to do it, and not every employee should do it. But the opportunity should be put out there. And one of the things I think that people sometimes of is that for people like you and I who come from media backgrounds, a lot of this stuff comes very naturally, right? How we write a headline, how we shape something in a few words, how you write a caption to a picture, how you promote what's coming up next, the next event, just like you would promote the next segment or the next webinar or whatever. Right. And you have to realize that it isn't for a lot of people, and we sometimes lose sight of that, because a lot of people haven't had that background and that training. So people should be trained on social media just as they receive other types of training when they join a company, or if a company's going to implement this. And it's a win-win, because they become better messengers for the company, but they also become better at building their own brand and promoting themselves in the process, right? So I think it just becomes a core competency, like other aspects of your training for employees, just like you train them on the computer system, and just like they're mandated to have,
Mhm.
certain types of other training depending on the industry. This is something that should be embedded in the culture and be a part of what they learn, because no matter whether they're becoming great advocates or not on behalf of the company, how they portray themselves on social media is still a representation of that company if they're wearing that company's logo.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and you brought up, several terrific points in there, which is, yes, it all goes back to proper onboarding, which
Right.
I know across the board companies really struggle with, is getting their employees up to speed quickly. Around the company culture and the processes and just the operation
Right.
or operational standpoint of that company. And if you guide them through that process properly, then yeah, they're going to become your raving fans. They're going to become those advocates that just want to get out there and talk about you all the time, because
Right. Right.
they eat, sleep, and breathe it. They get what goes on not only behind the scenes, but from a customer perspective as well. If you've properly brought them through that onboarding situation, and then to be able to train them, so it's an education issue too, is what it sounds like you're saying, where we are not properly equipping employees with the power to get out there and talk about us, the power to get out there and share our message, because maybe
Mhm.
they don't completely understand what their role is within the company. They think
Right.
they're just making bricks when they're
Right.
building a
Right.
cathedral. So it's helping them understand what their role is, what role they play within the company, and then how to translate that. Because I don't think it's just a company issue of how do I translate who I am and what I do across social media, but it's also an employee issue of, okay, I think you guys are great,
Right.
but how do I take that and make that tangible to my audience? How do I get them as enthusiastic as I am, about the company? I think it's fascinating when you look at the statistics around
Right.
employee advocacy and what the right message can do. I want to say is that brand messages reached 561% further when
Yeah.
they were
Something
shared by
like that.
employees versus the same message just being shared by the business or brand. So the statistics are staggering.
And I believe like a 12% increase in employee advocacy can lead to a double your
Yeah.
revenue. So I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
staggering. It really is. Um, but it doesn't happen in every case, and I want to be balanced, and it may not be right for every
Yeah.
business, and certainly um, businesses in regulated industries like banking and insurance and businesses like
Sure.
that have to be a little more careful and have more control and have to make sure that they're tracking and recording all their communications and all that kind of thing. So there's a lot. But for many businesses, and I think it's really an easier sell when I talk to like the founders of a startup, right? Because they understand that if they can only hire a couple employees, they benefit if those employees have multiple skills and know that those employees have to wear multiple hats. So if they hire a coder who's also got a great following on social media and can share the message and help market the product, they're looking at it as great, right? Like the more that person can do, it's a much easier sell. Whereas going to the manager of a department within a company who is an employee who does the same thing all day long, right, in a big company, and you say, okay, we want that person to advocate on social media, and they're thinking, well, they're not going to. That's not what we hired them for. That's not what we want to do. But again, if it becomes a part of the culture, if HR, I mean, I think it's something that the entire company has to take on. But I think like HR is probably the one to lead this effort because HR has the most balanced agenda, right? HR
Mm.
is the one department that looks out for all the employees
Everybody.
and is concerned with what all the employees are doing. And so your HR employees should be working very closely with the heads of departments and should really, the business partners who work with different departments should know those employees and should be able to at least start to identify when we launch a program, who do we want to make sure we get involved, who's active on social media, who understands how to present themselves in the public eye and so forth. And if you have a huge company, you've got to start by identifying some people and starting a program small, and then you build it up bigger. It doesn't start overnight that you say, okay, 60,000 employees, go, right? So,
yeah,
so it helps, it helps when HR knows the employees
yeah.
in different departments and understands that you got to get the buy-in from the department heads and from the supervisors because they have to understand the importance of it. And part of that is getting them to be doing it on behalf of the company as well. And if they can see the value in it for themselves and for their department, then so can they see it for their employees oftentimes.
So let's stop there and talk about that for a bit, because I think that is a huge sticking point, especially
Right.
for small to mid-sized businesses. How do you get started? Where do you get started? And how can you, because I'm like you, baby steps. Start small and
Right.
then ramp it up. Where would you suggest that a small business, a startup, that maybe just has a handful of people, how do you tap into the power of your people and put a plan together that is simple enough that people are going to stick with it, but also going to make a big enough impact to make it worth everybody's while?
Right, right. Well, assuming that your employees understand, right, the culture and understand the significance of what your company's doing, you're already off to a good start, right? Then you identify the employees who you'd like to launch the program with, right? They should have a little bit of training, but it's also that message should be aligned with the message that you already have in marketing. So it's not that, employee advocacy exists over here and marketing's over here. It should all be aligned. So your messaging and your goals and your objectives and how you measure success should all flow from the same goals and metrics and so forth that marketing uses. Now, there's some differences, there's some different wrinkles, but in a big picture sense, there should be total alignment between your employee advocacy and what your marketing department's trying to achieve. And so from there, then you move forward, and it's not so much about telling employees what to say as providing them some goals, the general picture of what the messaging is, and then you let them say it in their unique voice and in their own time and in their own style, where they see an opportunity and whatever, and then maybe you measure some way to see what the effectiveness is of those employees. But that's kind of how you get it going, is that you say, you have to have that open communication, and they have to know what's going on with the company. If you're in an organization where each department silos itself and like, we're going to hold this information in here so we have power versus another department, that's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
You have to be communicating throughout the organization what's going on, what the goals are, what the products and services are, and then let the employees use their own style. So they may use their own. One may find Instagram is the way to go with it. One may feel that Facebook is the way to go, or Twitter. But let the employee go where their network is on the platform that they're comfortable with, right? We all, even though a lot of us are on many platforms, I think we all know that there's a certain platform or two that we consider our strength, right? That's
Absolutely.
where our network is. That's what we enjoy. That's where we know we're going to get the most response. So allow that to kind of happen, right? Don't put so much control over it that you say everybody's got to do it on Facebook. Some people, Facebook is just like a few select friends and that's it, and they don't share with many people, and they just look to see what's going on. So if they have a big Instagram following, and they like to put photos on Instagram, a photo from behind the scenes at an event, a photo of a new product before it's launched. Any of these things can be great ways for employees to share with their communities.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think that's again, it's so important to make sure that your employees do feel comfortable, that they're not being required to tweet about you when they don't use Twitter.
Right, right.
And not being required to hop on Snapchat if they don't like to use Snapchat. So letting them connect with their audience where they're already doing it,
right.
It's just so smart. It's allowing you to tap into a market that maybe you haven't been able to tap into yet. And then it also keeps them in their comfort zone as far as, who that audience is they've already built up, those relationships they already have. And then naturally weaving it into everything else that they do. I know you've touched on this a couple of times, and it's another sticking point, definitely for me and probably for a lot of companies, which is don't shove your message so far down the throat of your team or your employees that it just doesn't even sound natural, that it's nothing that would ever come out of their mouth.
And you also, take it even beyond, you also lose out on the creativity that individuals have. So, I may have a message to put out there, right? And I do it in my own voice, and I think, okay, this is the messaging. But if I send the information to you, there's every chance you'll come up with a better way to share it for your community or even for the larger audience than what I came up with. And that's what works for you. And so having the message in different forms in different places, within still having a unified message, if that makes sense, you still have, your sort of unified brand message, but how it's communicated, let each person's own creativity and genius kind of come out in how they want to distribute it. And part of it, again, with communication is if you're sharing, like if your company puts a really cool photo on Instagram or Facebook, right, that they're going to put out there, why wouldn't an employee want to jazz up their own timeline or their own feed by sharing that image from their workplace or their cool product or their blog post that ran on the company site? Why wouldn't they want to share that? Why wouldn't they want to brag about what their team's doing and share it with their friends and family? And again, that's going to be something that's trusted more than what necessarily comes just from the company logo. And it's even more so, all the studies show, it's even more so with the millennial generation, because they've so tuned out to the advertising messages that, those of us a few years older may be used to having pushed at us. But to them, it's sort of like we skip through commercials. We tune out when we know we're getting the corporate speak. But when a friend or a family member or someone they trust, even an employee who doesn't have to be spreading the word on their own time, shares something with them, that goes a long way. I mean, I recently bought a product that I bought it because an employee, I talked to an employee about it. I probably wanted to buy it, but I talked to an employee about it, and he told me how he uses it for himself. And I know that he's very good at how he uses it. And he actually said to me, listen, I know I work for the company, but I could get any of the different options that you're going to buy for free and could use any of them. So I have access to all of them, and I use this one because it's the best, and here's why. That's much more powerful than going to the corporate website and reading the press release on the new release. And but when somebody who has a social presence and you can see that they're documenting what they're doing and they're putting it out there on video and they're putting it out there on photos and they're sharing their expertise with people just as they do their normal day-to-day work, and then they tell you, look, this is what I'm using and this is why I use it, and I've tried all of them so that I know the differences and everything, and I use this. That's so powerful. That really
Oh,
is.
yeah. Absolutely. It's the same difference of, third-party testimonials and
Right.
the difference of you walking into a room and shouting to everybody in the room how amazing Ross is, as opposed to me coming in and saying, did you know? I mean, this guy has been live streaming for as long as live streaming is around. He
This is
knows
why
it
I pay
inside
you
and
the big
out.
bucks.
That's right. To come in a room before you, but I think people miss that power of allowing your employees to just naturally weave that into conversations. And I know I've seen in the past that nearly 100% of company employees are using social media at this point, and yet half of them are already talking about you on
Right.
social media. So 50% are talking about you, but you've yet to tap into that and really put together a more unified strategy,
Right.
something more strategic around your
You're
brand.
exactly right. They're doing it anyway, so why not
Yeah,
help them do it better, and why not help them be better at it? And
right.
the reason why I
Exactly.
use both of those terms is because it should be a win-win, right? The company benefits from the reach and the exposure that they get, and the trust factor that the employee has, and the employee should benefit by elevating their personal brand through the connection with a company that they're proud to work for, and by showcasing their own knowledge or expertise, or just making people aware of what they're doing, so that when you know, I need some, I just the fact that like you're associated with Post Planner made me check out Post Planner. The fact
Mm.
that I saw you using certain tools made me want to try them, because I'm familiar with your website from being connected to you on Facebook, and familiar with your blog posts, and how visually um, awesome your website is. So I mean, all those things matter more than if the company just threw it with the logo, right, with its
Right.
avatar, sent me
Yep.
something and said, try this. No, what I see, oh, Rebecca uses this. Okay, I better take a look at it, because she knows what she's doing. And so you're elevating the company, but then in turn, through showing what you do for the company and how you use Post Planner and
Hmm.
things like that, you're also elevating yourself as an expert in the industry. So both sides, I think both sides win.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think you said a key word, which is something we talk about so much in social media anyway, which is genuine and authentic.
Right.
So if the employee doesn't truly use your product or your service or believe in it, you're shooting yourself in the foot anyway. So you do have to, that's why I think it goes back to you talking about this is an HR issue as much
Hmm.
as it is a marketing issue. You do have to have that comfort level that the employee truly embraces your
Right.
culture, what you're doing, what you're working towards, and what your mission, vision, and values are.
Exactly. And one of the things that Gary Vaynerchuk's famous for saying in his speeches, and telling his audience is, you guys aren't marketing in the year that we live in. You're marketing like it's still 2012, or you're marketing like it's still 1998 or whatever. Well, when you think about how HR, and not just HR, but generally companies with their approach to like the employee-employer relationship are operating, they're operating like it's 1950, right? Like you're going to come out of school, you're going to get a job, you're going to stay at the company for 40 years, you're going to work your way up the ladder, and everybody still kind of buys into this fiction to a large degree, even though that world has long gone, right?
Hmm.
Now, for the last 20 years, what you're going to do is you're going to hop around to different jobs, and eventually, maybe by moving a lot, you'll not take the ladder, but you'll take weave your way up to a more comfortable position, right? And now we're getting to the point where you're going to have many different careers. You're going to need to relearn skills. You're going to need to pick up new skills. You're going to need to um, not only change jobs, but you need to take lateral moves, or take few steps back before you take a few steps. You may be freelancing, you may be consulting, A lot of jobs, probably 50% of the workforce by the year 2020 will be, contract hires and freelancers and things like that. So if we acknowledge that reality as a company and acknowledge that, what, we hire somebody for a certain length of time and they're probably going to need to move on at some point, right? Just as we will need different skills or a different person at some point, then both sides can benefit from that if we acknowledge the truth of the situation and we conduct our relationship with our employees and employers as though it's 2016. And so it's the value of helping your employee and help yourself, right? By promoting your employee, you're promoting yourself. So it means helping your employees, encouraging them to have great LinkedIn profiles, in which, of course, they share the company that they're working for, so they're promoting, encouraging them to make contacts outside their inner circle, right? Encouraging them to go on business lunches and network and really put their personal brand out there. So that they can exit in a positive way from the company and go on to something good. At the same time, the people that they're meeting, the people that they're dealing with, can become not only customers, but can become clients, business partners, Yeah. And then when those employees leave, if we exit them in a way that makes them feel that their time there was valued, by instead of doing an exit interview and ask, well, what went wrong, or why are you leaving, or what really was the story here, but instead we welcome them. Now welcome to our alumni network. Join our alumni Facebook group. Connect with the alumni LinkedIn community, and keep us up to date with what you're going on. We'll keep you up to date. There's a good chance they're going to go to their next company and want to refer business to you or want to do business with you, and you find that they're actually more of an asset to you with another company, and as they move up and their ability to influence the decisions that company makes than they were in a lower level position at your company. But it's all part of realizing that it's a win-win as they enhance their own brand and their own ability to use social media. They're also helping the company, right? So, it's almost like you promote others to promote yourself in a way.
Yeah, and it is. That is a huge shift in how we look at that employee relationship. In that it used to be, we'll just hold them incredibly tight and close to us, and they're not allowed to interact or talk to anybody else. And gone are those days. Now we have to empower them to do exactly the opposite.
And in fairness to the company, the employee got a lot out of by just going along with it, right? You almost knew that if you didn't cause trouble and you got a little better at what you were doing over a few years and you stuck around, you'll eventually get a promotion and another promotion, and you'll retire in 40 years to a pension, and so. But that world doesn't exist anymore. And, we talk about the knowledge economy. It's also really a social economy that we live in. And the more that people are changing jobs and the more that companies have to adjust and innovate and do all these things, your social connections, both as an individual and as an organization, have a huge impact on who you decide to work with, who you decide to do business with. So there's that whole aspect of it as well. But I don't want to in any way paint this as it's a pie in the sky kind of thing. Like, you put in an employee advocacy program, you support your employees, and tomorrow they show up, they work harder, they make you money, whatever. This is part of a larger culture change that needs to go on within the organization, because certainly if you have employees who aren't engaged, who aren't happy with their jobs, who don't feel valued and don't feel recognized, well, they're going to just say, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to learn how to do this and promote myself and leave the company, and I'm not going to work any harder at what I'm doing or really share all that much about the company or whatever. They still have to feel that emotional connection to what the company's about, what they represent beyond their day-to-day work and their paycheck, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and certainly there's no magic bullet
Right.
for any of this that just poof overnight. It's going to change everything that goes on, whether it's the sales or the product side or marketing. It definitely anything like this of this magnitude
Right.
is going to take time, and it's just like anything else where you need to have a semblance of a plan in place so that there can be that consistency. And this is a little bit of what we touched on previously, which is if you're thinking that, hey, maybe I'll just give it a try, and I've got a couple of people that are kind of doing something out there on social media, and I think if I just kind of, tell them, hey, jump out. Well, Siri seems to think I need something from her.
Very responsive. That's
very,
good.
very. Yes, exactly.
The kind of assistant that you need, right?
That's right there. But if you're treating it like a hit or miss, and maybe you'll throw it at the wall and hope it sticks, you're going to get absolutely nothing out of it. Just like anything else that you're putting very little time, effort, or thought into. And I think that's where companies struggle. I know we talked about putting a plan in place, but how do you create something that is sustainable, that you can actually keep up with? And then how do you come back and track and measure the success of employee advocacy? What are you looking at, those key metrics that would tell you as a company, hey, this is something we really need to figure out how to grow within our company. We need to get more people involved. How do you continuously take a look at that to improve upon what you've put in place?
Well, certainly you can measure how much employees are sharing, how much engagement their posts and their shares get. But ultimately, like everything else, it comes back to traffic and conversions, right? Are their shares driving people to your website? And whatever you've measured as your conversion, whether it's signing up for a newsletter, whether it's purchasing a product, right? Whatever your next leading indicator is, right, to revenue, that's what you got to look at. And I think employees who are highly engaged, you'll see that they're sharing a lot, and then you need to measure the effectiveness of that. And ultimately, you have to look at, is it converting and is it leading to sales, and how you break that down. And if you're not seeing a benefit from it, then it's you either have to adjust, or it may not be working for your company, and maybe you don't continue with it. But ultimately, it's the same way that marketing looks at the success of marketing projects. Is it driving traffic to your website, and is it converting?
Yep. Exactly right. Yeah, and so it's understanding, what is your goal with your employee advocacy program? What are you trying to achieve? What exactly are those assets that you're going to hand over to your employees that they can take and spread the word, whether it's swag like t-shirts or anything else, down to do you have your product that you're driving them over to? Do you have a way to capture those new leads, sales, and contacts as well? So I think there's a lot more to think through than maybe just at the surface, and that's where a lot of people get hung up is, okay, Ross, so how do I determine what I'm trying to achieve with my employee advocacy program?
And then how do I reward, compensate, measure in terms of performance? All that kind of stuff has to be the same way you would with any other initiative with employees. How do I compensate employees? Is there a bonus if they if their social footprint has led to acquisition of a big customer? Is there some type of recognition that they get for sharing the most content, or sharing the most content that leads to X number of leads, or however it is within the culture of that organization that you recognize and reward employees? Then this needs to become embedded as well, because what you compensate and reward for are what you'll get. So if if you're not recognizing people for doing it, ultimately, they're going to say, well, this really isn't that valued by the company. The other thing is you have to keep it in perspective, right? Like if somebody's job is not related to social media and they put in an hour or two a week on it, you obviously can't be grading them the same way that you're grading your social media manager
Right.
who's doing that. You have to grade it within, a curve based on what's realistic in terms of the expectations for that employee. But like anything else, you don't know what you're doing if you don't measure, and you have to measure how it's going. And I think it's good also internally because employees will become proud of what they're doing. They'll see that they're having an impact, and it'll encourage other employees who are on the fence about, well, do I really want to turn over my Twitter to sharing some company stuff, or do I just want to continue sharing what I like to share? And if they're seeing other employees being rewarded, and they're seeing that, even just seeing that other employees are having an impact, right?
Yeah.
That's going to lead them to say, hey, I want to be a valued contributor in that area as well. So definitely through measuring those things, you can definitely you know how to adjust and how to make improvements, and also how to inspire others to action.
Well, and as we're getting close to wrapping up here, I think we've covered a lot of territory. I would love to hear from you. I would say metrics and not tracking success would be a top mistake that businesses make as they kind of dip their toe into employee advocacy. What would be some others that you would really caution people to look out for? Don't make these mistakes that others have made as they're getting started.
Well, we touched on it before, but I think it's worth highlighting, and that is it's not for everybody, right? It's not for every employee. Don't force people to do this. It has to come from wanting to do it. So you want to give them the tools and the training, but there needs to be a certain amount of trust, and there needs to be a certain amount if they'd like to do this. Because if you try and force them to do it, it's not going to come out the right way, right? They have another job that they're being paid for at the company, and they can do it or they cannot do it. But it helps, of course, if you identify those employees, if you know your employee population well, and you can identify those employees who already have an aptitude for sharing on social media and engaging on social media, who already have a following. By starting with those employees and enlisting those employees, they're going to like the opportunity that that you've recognized that they're just not a functionary in some area, but they're a person with diverse skill set and somebody who can use some of those skills in their work role. So I think that's very important to identify the employees that you want to launch the program with, and encourage, support, train, but not pressure or force. Reward but not punish, so to speak, in how you recognize and deal with employees who are taking on this role.
Yeah. I just can't ever see in any situation where strong-arming your employees into talking about you on social media is a win-win or ever going to work.
Right. And again, realize that this isn't a natural skill for everybody, and that a lot of people not only need some training in how to use the tools and how to, deliver a message, but also need to know what the message is and what the goals are, because they're not in the marketing department, and they're not in sales. They may not have thought about these things. So it needs a lot more open communication and a lot more transferring that knowledge, right, and making sure that they know this is what our goals are, this is what we're about, and a big part of that again is HR needs to think about how they market internally, how they evangelize internally, just as the marketing department does to customers and clients.
Yeah, marketing, evangelizing internally is so incredibly important, and I think could be that flipping of the switch within your organization that you couldn't quite get your finger on. Maybe your culture isn't as cohesive as you'd like it to be. Maybe you've got some outliers that are employees that have just been a little bit of a concern, and I think evangelizing internally could be the key to so many different things within your company.
And I think there's some companies within the hospitality industry that really get that when they start to when their HR department sets the goal of treating their employees as internal guests. So we're very responsive to what our employees say. We pick up the phone when they call, just like we would on a couple rings, just like we would if we were working the front desk for a customer. We address we return their call within a certain amount of time. We have an open door policy where they can come in and talk to us at any. So it's all these kind of things that you're providing the same experience, like a hotel, say a luxury hotel. It's not just the physical space, right? Because you can get physical space in a budget hotel. It's the experience and how you're treated and all, which makes people want to stay at that place. So it's the experience that you provide for those employees that creates a culture whereby then they want to provide that to the customer.
Right, yeah, where it just naturally spills over and into their social media. So, Ross, I can't believe it's been an hour. We're going to wrap this up. I could just keep talking to you.
I know, this is fun.
So many amazing golden nuggets. So tell us, if people want to learn more about implementing an employee advocacy program, or they just want to get in touch with you, connect with you, how can they go about doing that?
Sure. I'm at letter I, Ross Brand on Twitter. And they can also check out our HR avant-garde. You can just go to hravg.com. We're not average, but in order to shorten it, we made it hravg.com, and that'll forward to HR avant-garde. So you can contact me through that, or you can just send me a message on Twitter at @iRossBrand.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again for spending an hour here with us. It's such an important topic, and obviously you've been down this road a few times.
So thanks for having me. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
You as well. Take care. Have a great weekend, and thanks to everybody who's watching live or watching the replay. We look forward to seeing you at our next live event. Take care, guys.